Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show, and joining me now is an old friend, not old literally, I'm the old one.
I'm getting old there.
Yeah. Well, that happens.
The 30 bridge.
That does happen. But yes, someone I've known for a long time, I should say. It is, of course, Sue Smix Lee, esports host extraordinaire, former streamer, being told off by parents, going viral before going viral was a thing. You've done it all. So yeah. Richard remembers the good old days.
Richard remembers all of it. Yeah, those good old days. Oh my God, I was a hot mess back then.
I thought you were fucking super cool back then. Actually, I think with the whole b-boy look and all of that.
Like, my God,
I used to think that was like you were like one of the coolest people in StarCraft. Actually, no joke. Everyone else was a bit of a nerd, you know.
No, I mean, I'm happy to chat with you. It's crazy to think that we've for the length that we've known each other and the things that have happened since then and how things have changed. It's crazy to look at, but it's also nice to speak with you and have that camaraderie where we're like, hey, we were there. Like, you've seen me.
We were there. We pushed that boulder up the mountain, and when we didn't make any money. So yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that was fair. But
that was normal though, you know?
Yeah, I know. Like, we weren't doing it for that, obviously. So look, I'll start in the present, which is, you know, I know obviously you've got this incredible tenure, and we'll dig into the history and everything. But what are you doing at the moment? Because I feel like I'm a little bit disjointed. I haven't. I've gone back to journalism. I'm working at CSGO, so I haven't necessarily been keeping up with events and what games and where you're working. But it does feel to me like I haven't seen you at an event for a little bit. Is that reasonable?
Yes, that's very true. I want to preface this by saying I know how incredibly privileged this is going to sound, and I know how lucky I am. But I have the fortune of having a full-time job at Twitch, and I've been sort of climbing the ranks in the partnerships team and really been buckling down on the role that I have there. And as a result, hosting hasn't been a focus of mine. That being said, I think when a great opportunity comes in, for example, being able to host the Valorant tournament a couple of weeks ago, it's probably more than a couple of weeks ago at this point, but time is kind of fluid, and I can't tell anymore.
We're still in lockdown brain. You know?
Exactly. Valorant and of course all the StarCraft, the main StarCraft events that are going on, being able to host for that. Those are mainly the only things that I've really been a part of in the last year.
Well, how are you finding Valorant over there? Because I think, and I've said this a few times on podcasts recently, I don't think anything's sort of been decided about who the go-to people are going to be yet. There's a lot of casters. It's pretty ruthless, actually, if I'm being honest with you. There's some fuckery going on with some of the casters and stuff. But I mean, like, because it's the new hot thing, all the hosts have been over there, all the casters have been over there, and so it's kind of like everyone wants to be a part of it, but Riot will probably have the final say in who gets to stick around. So how are you feeling? I mean, is that a scene you would want to be involved in a full-time capacity, maybe?
So I will add a disclaimer that I only really know about what it's been like for the Masters event I was a part of, as well as the First Strike event. I haven't been a part of any of the like open qualifier events, or even like, for example, the events that are going on right now. So I don't have the insights into those. That being said, you're absolutely right. It's always interesting at the beginning of an esport and seeing the sort of craziness that's happening behind the scenes. I think, again, I've been lucky because I feel like the host role sees a lot less of that craziness. It's usually with like the casters and the analysts and the people that are hungry for that shot, where I feel like a lot of that sort of crazy mess happens. So I feel very lucky that I haven't been a part of any of it. But it has been interesting, mainly because I think we're at a point in the game where everyone is still learning about the game.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to just be like, oh yeah, like this guy knows the ins and outs, because everyone's still learning, right? But I do think that's part of the reason why, for example, people really like watching Sean for the commentary that he does and the color that he provides, because he does play the game at a very, very high level. He is thinking strategically all the time. So you can hear it in his casts where he A, knows exactly what's going on, but also B, is like genuinely enamored by the cool shit that he's seeing and the new things he might even see players bring out. So I've really been enjoying watching him. And then for the rest, I feel like it's almost like a free for all. Like people are like, okay, this is my chance. Like,
Yeah,
this is my moment. Just
I
give me the
know.
chance and watch me shine. I'll be the next big guy, I promise. But
Well,
I,
you've been through that as well in general, right? I
mm,
mean, I think one of the things that no one ever talks about in broadcast talent is that even though we all get along when we're on a show, we do know that some people out there have been assholes essentially, right? And then there's been some cutthroat bullshit that goes
mm,
on, and when you're doing your job in
mm.
particular at an event, there's only ever one stage host. We even get two desk hosts these days if an event's long enough, but there's only ever one stage host. And so as a result, it's one of the most limited jobs that there are. And everyone thinks they can fucking do it. I think it's the hardest job. I'm not even bullshitting. I think desk host easier than stage host.
It's so funny you say that because I
Yeah.
think it's the opposite.
Yo, I can't do it. I'll get into why in a little bit, but so I know you've gone through that, and you're a real, like, I would say a very, well, you're just a nice human being. You're just a very passive, nice human being,
Mm.
and it must be weird because I'm sure you've probably encountered situations where people are coming to take essentially your spot away, from an event via whatever means they can. Right? Have you? Are there any stuff like that gone on in your career?
Yeah. And again, my experience is probably not going to be the same as others, but I think my mindset has always been, what can I be doing better?
Yeah.
Because this is the way I look at it, right? From the events that I've seen, the TOs that I've seen, at the end of the day, where possible and where the budget is possible, they're always still going to want the best talent for whatever role. And I'm very cognizant of what my strengths are, and I'm also very cognizant of what my weaknesses are. So in the moments where, for example, someone started hosting over me, I've always been very aware about why, and I've never disagreed with the decision.
Mhm.
And you might not believe me, but I seriously mean that.
No, I think you're the one person I would believe that about.
No,
I
but seriously, like every time it's happened, I've been like, wow, well, not surprised. Like I think they're amazing at what they do.
Mm,
And I think the big thing that I do is I always see like, okay, well, what are the things that I bring to the table? Okay, it's gonna be this, this, this. What are the areas that I can work on? And I am very aware of what those things are. And then I'll look at whoever it is that is currently hosting and whatnot, and I'll look at what their strengths are. And every single time I'm like, this is actually, their strength is like an area of growth for me. So I'm not surprised that they're getting the spot. Do I think I'm like a bad host? No, of course not. But
right.
I do think that anytime that someone else has gotten the position over me, I've always understood why.
You ever worry a little bit like you might be like mind fucking yourself or like some imposter syndrome bullshit or something like that?
No, and again, this is where I think the privilege comes in of like having the full-time job. I
Sure.
think it would be very different, Richard, if this was what I was doing full time and I was trying to make it as an esports host, first and foremost. But that's never been my mentality. My mentality has always been, especially since I got the job at Twitch in 2015, my mentality has always been, listen, when I get the opportunity, I'm going to do the best that I can, try to do justice by the players that are working their asses off to show the best gameplay possible. I'm going to do my best to try to make whatever they just achieved as cool as possible. And I'm going to focus on that and be honored when I get asked. If I don't
Mm.
get asked, cool, that's fine. There's always a reason to it, and it just means I need to work harder if I feel so strongly that I want to get asked the next time. And that's just been my mentality that I just keep repeating to myself.
And you're definitely someone again, I think people, they never really see what goes on behind the broadcast, right? But like out of all the people I've worked with, there's probably there's like you're a top three hard worker, I think. Like no shit, like because
Mm.
I've seen you at those events when you're like pacing around talking to yourself words and stuff.
Look like a
I've
crazy
seen it.
person.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, so, I know like how much you put in, like, because especially when you do multiple games, it's a nightmare. You got to know so much and it's got to be fresh, and you have to make sure you ask the right question. And maybe you didn't catch the game because you were getting, makeup and hair done or whatever, like, because you got to go out on camera, and maybe you missed the end of a game and an amazing moment's happened and you get it secondhand from somebody, and then you have to double check. You're not going to say the wrong thing. It's a lot of work, and I think stage host is the most stressful job for sure.
I think so. In regards to the pacing, just a quick little funny story there is I remember one time I was about to interview Simple, right? And it was at E-League. I think you were on the desk and you were doing your segment before you threw to me. And I was doing my weird thing where I'm like talking to myself, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
you
I
do
have
do
no
that.
shame, by the way. I don't care. Like I'll talk to myself, getting ready for the interview. I'll like stretch weird. I'm always doing my weird stretches before interviews. And Simple's just chilling, standing there, like kind of watching me, like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I just talked to myself before." And he was like, "Oh, okay," because he wasn't sure if I was talking to him. I was kind of like muttering under my breath, but I'm sure in his eyes he was like, "What is this girl doing?" He's like, "Is she crazy?" But yeah, I think for me, I just feel like if I'm not, and everybody's different, right? But for me, because I know that I will never understand the game at the same level as like a sponge, right?
Mhm.
Or the analysts that are in the space that have played the game at the highest level, understand the game at the strategic level that they do. I feel like I need to do as much as I can to fill in those blanks where I have them. So even in your example of like perhaps there's times that you may miss something because you're getting makeup done. That was actually something I intentionally tried to avoid, where I'd be
Yeah,
like, listen, I'd rather not get makeup than miss this.
yeah.
So can we postpone because I need to watch?
That used to
And
happen to me a lot as well, even because no joke, they used to have to de-shine my bald head.
yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, so there's stuff happening in the game, and they go, Richard, we need you for 5 minutes. I go, you're too bald and shiny.
No, I mean everyone gets shiny. I get shiny
Yeah,
too. But I remember I thought it was really important for me, at least my routine that I still do to this day is I feel like the least I can do is pay attention to every round. And
sure.
it's not that I think every round is important, but it's just for someone like me who is an interviewer and I need to pay attention to storylines and big pivotal moments in games. It's big pivotal moments only make sense in the context of the bigger picture of what's been happening in that game. So that's why it was so important for me to take notes even in the moments where no action might be happening, or even if one team is getting stomped. It was really important for me to like keep track in a
Yeah,
very detailed fashion because I needed to have that whole picture in my brain before I talked about it.
yeah. Which is why I think as well. I mean, because we're talking about the interviewing aspect of it now. I mean, that's hard in and of itself. You never know how an interview is going to go over. Um, so I can't remember if I'm sure it happened to you at one event where like some answer the one a player gave was considered like disrespectful, and then that quickly pivoted to like, why did she ask that question? You know what I mean? So it's like you've got that thing to worry about. It's live a lot of the time, most of the time, and you've got to get in and out and do three to five quick questions. Players might not even want to answer the questions, so that's an art form in and of itself. But then the bit I think is really hard, going on a stage and getting a crowd hyped. This, no, dude,
Ah.
I do not know how you do it. I've done it. I've done it. I have done it, and I have fucking bombed, right? Like a stand-up comic who no one laughs at. That bad. Like, uh,
Richard, you say that like I haven't bombed a trillion times.
well,
I've bombed
I
so much too.
well, go on, then. Give me some example. When have you bombed?
Oh my God. Like, so, Richard, literally, you're asking me to name 10 different examples here.
One will do. Tell us the worst time then,
Uh,
because I reckon probably that Russian event,
no,
the Dream.
that was up there too. The
Yeah,
reason that event was so difficult. So this was 2014 DreamHack Moscow.
yeah,
I think it was like October or something, and it was an event where, first of all, the majority of the audience didn't speak English,
mm,
so they had a translator there, and it's really difficult to do anything hype on stage when there's like a pause and then
yeah,
there's like a
sure.
translation. So that was really difficult because anything that I said, there wasn't a real response because there was only a handful of people that I think understood what I was saying. So that was very, very difficult. Even just starting off way back in like 2013, I remember when DreamHack first made me a stage host, I was just so, that was when I was super green, right? Like so green, didn't know what I was doing, was still in the process of learning the ins and outs of even how to do this job.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember I wrote my intro down, and I was like shaking and so nervous that I stood my little body on the middle of this big stage, and I was holding my little cue card, and I was like, "Welcome everybody to Dream." I was just literally doing this like the whole time.
Like a hostage video, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Literally, it was.
DreamHack are treating me well.
One of my favorite things to do is sometimes I'll like joke around with the producers who were working with me from back then,
Yeah.
and I'll thank them, and I'll just be like, I'll laugh with them, and I'll say, "Hey, do you remember when I first started, and how much patience you guys had with me, and it's crazy how things have changed." And they're like, "Sue, we remember." They're like, "We remember." But all jokes aside, I'm glad I went through those experiences because that was the way for me to learn, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I think you definitely need a few rough ones.
yeah.
I think it really helps because it not only does it teach you about what works, and also you get that kind of contextual understanding of like, okay, next time I'm doing an event with a translator, I'll slow my pace down, or I
Yeah.
won't go for the big hype pop. I'll let the translator do
Exactly.
it or whatever. So, but I mean, equally as well, though, I think you've done some, like stellar work. And like I say, when you came into Counter Strike, by way of for instance, you had no background in that game, really.
Mhm.
It was like completely new, completely fresh, and you ended up obviously working, all the top events. You did the major. It's like it's a hell of an achievement. How do you feel about the CS scene overall?
Uh, I don't mean to sound down about it, but
Mm,
I'm just really sad at the state of NACS.
mm,
It's just really sad because CS is always going to be like my heart, right? Like I didn't come from CS, but I grew up watching my brother play CS. It was his favorite game.
right.
So even though I wasn't a part of the scene, it was a game I really enjoyed watching my brother play a lot. And when I fell into the scene, I very, very quickly fell in love with just every part of it, the passion, the hard work, the storylines, the nature of it being a team game. So it feels like every cool moment is amplified 5x. Every win is amplified, every crushing defeat is amplified. So I really, got sucked in. The empath in me really felt for all of these big moments. Um, and then now fast forward to where we are today, and just seeing the NA scene kind of like crumble as everyone has left and gone to Valorant, and where more and more teams are pulling out. And I get it, but it sucks.
Well, I mean, you were there at sort of what ended up being the peak of
Yeah,
North
yeah,
American Counter Strike, obviously at the Boston Major.
yeah.
And you even got the whole "I'm not crying." It's serious. You have an iconic moment.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember like 3 nights prior to that moment, Ska, the great guy that he is,
mm,
he was having a dinner with some of his friends that he's been friends with for years and years, that he met online, and they played, I think, AVA, I think it's called. It's an
yeah,
FPS game.
yeah.
And he met them through that, and they stayed good friends. And I think he had like even flown them out to come watch him at the major. And I remember walking up to him and I was like, hey, like, because he had always dodged the interview with me, right?
Mm.
I always got the usual suspects like Rush. I had gotten Stu a lot. I had gotten Tarek and even Timmy, but Ska was like the unicorn that refused to do interviews. And I was like, listen, you need to give me an interview. Now that you guys are in the playoffs, like you need to give me an interview. And he was like, okay, Sue, if we win the major, I'll give you the interview. And I think he said it like, surely, like,
Yeah,
this
I've
isn't
do- I've
happening.
dodged this one. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So when it finally happened, I remember walking over to him and I was just like, we got to go, Tyler. We got to do the interview. And then he's just he's just such a great guy. I felt so privileged to be even sharing that moment with him, to be able to give him the spotlight that he deserved. It was such a beautiful, like one of probably the best moment that I've been a part of personally in terms of like esports history. Um, I was just so happy for him, and you know,
But
honored to be part
I
of it.
think it's a really good example, actually, of some kind of essential skills that people don't think too much about. And, there'll be a lot of people who look up to you and the work you do. So this is something that you should take from this anecdote. First of all, what Sue's done there is she's set the interview up. She's created a scenario where that moment can happen by being involved backstage, which is obviously a lot of hosts. They come, they do an event, they don't interact with anyone outside of the production and maybe the other talent, sit in the green room, and you've got to be active to kind of have the potential to create those moments. And then the other thing, and there are so many esports people that do this, and it fucking annoys me so much. It is the player's moment. And I see so many esports talent down the years that have inserted themselves into these moments. And I'm not going to name names, but they definitely know who the fuck they are, where it's like they're in the shot, they're in the confetti's coming down. You shouldn't be in the confetti. Fuck off. The confetti's not for you. It's for the players. You shouldn't even be in the pictures. You should come on, you should do your bit, and you should walk away. And I think the people who understand that generally help create those iconic moments without really, overshadowing it. So I think you handled that like, that's a textbook example to any host there. You set it up, you created it, it lives forever in the history of the game. So you should be really proud of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's also been like a weird part of why I never feel, and I already know what you might say to this, so let me phrase this carefully. I've never felt like I was like it needed to be Sue or this tournament will rot, because in my opinion, the interviewer's job is not to be the focus, right? So in my eyes, it was always like, as long as the person is telling the player story, it doesn't have to be me, as long as they're doing right by the player. So for me, it was always like, that's why I never felt like an indispensable part of the broadcast, because I was like, well, it's not about me anyway. It should be about the player.
Which is very humble. Not a lot of, because you exist in a weird double life when you're broadcast talent. You need an ego to go stand in front of a camera. If you don't have an ego, you don't do it, because you don't think anyone cares what you have to say. But if your ego's too big, it ruins the work. It's a light touch that you need.
That's so funny that you say that, because I agree with you. I feel like you do need a certain level of confidence so that people believe what you're even saying. I feel like where I, as an interviewer, have been able to get away with like not leaning in that way too hard is because I feel like being an empath, once again, I've always just been like, well, I don't need to be this like ego, confident person, because my job right now is just to try to get everyone to understand why what this guy did was really cool. And I do that and I get out. So I do think, though, it meant for the last decade or so, it took a very, very, very long time for me to get to a point where I did feel confident with myself, which is a separate sort of side tangent. There is a part of me that wonders like how that would have reflected in the work that I did had I discovered this confidence sooner, but c'est la vie.
Yeah. Well, just while we're still on the Boston Major, we'll get into confidence and psychology and stuff, because we'll relate that to the early days in StarCraft, I think. But right, because there was a lot of wild stuff going on then. But the what people probably also have never been told about at the Boston Major was, I mean, it was a crazy, stressful event anyway. There was loads of peripheral stuff that people weren't aware of. There was, for example, we had that super blizzard, if you remember, in Boston.
Remember being very freaking cold, yes.
Yes, and we didn't even know if players were going to be able to fly in. Imagine that for a major if teams couldn't turn up. So everyone on the ground was working like 24/7. There was all sorts of crazy stuff going on. We were staying in that big hotel, where it was so everyone was all in it together. We weren't spread out, so any positivity spread, but obviously any stress would spread around. Everyone was panicking. But then there was this like insane catharsis, because we'd already done the Atlanta Major and people didn't like that so much at E-League for whatever reason. I thought it was a great event live, and I know you were there as well, but it didn't seem to translate to the broadcast at home, people were a little bit underwhelmed.
Mm.
Then when we did the Boston major, you know, the crowd, it wasn't sellout as we went down the back straight. And the one thing the tournament increasingly sort of seemed to hinge on, does Cloud9 stay in? Because
The storyline.
that's the home team. And every time they won, we were like, yes. And then they go into the final and you go, okay, they made it to the final. You know, you don't dare to dream you're going to get the fucking fairy tale
No,
on
you
your
don't.
broadcast at your event. And then when it happens, and it happens in the fashion that it happens, I think there was this huge, like, because it had been so stressful, because you'd had that amazing storyline, everyone was just a mess backstage. Everyone was in floods of tears.
Oh
You
my
were in
God.
floods of tears.
Couldn't stop crying. Yeah.
Yeah, you were.
I was a hot mess. Yeah.
I thought you were going to dehydrate. I was worried. I thought I was going to have to put a drip in you.
Yeah, I remember 30 minutes passed and Anders was like, Sue, or Smix, are you okay? And I'm like, "Ah."
I'm just so happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jenna was there too. I mean, you know, she was crying. Everyone was crying. Christina was crying. So I mean, talk me about that. Like, why was that event such an emotional, you know, thing at the end? Because we've worked dozens of events, and I think that's the only one I've seen people just collapse in floods of tears in the at the end of.
I think it's a combination of things. I think people need to realize that, like, when you work these events, yes, there's like the mental stress of like all the little things that are going wrong that we do our best the public doesn't see, right? But you and I are always privy to the details, like, oh, like this might go wrong, or we're having this production difficulty or this technical difficulty, and that is always like building up one by one. But we stomach it and we like shove it down because we're like, nope, we have to put on this very professional broadcast and just wait. So you have that going on, and then you just also have like the physical like fatigue that is building up, as because when you're working these events you have this like weight on your shoulders. I don't know how to describe it, but there's just this like weight on your shoulders of like you have to focus all of your freaking mental bandwidth and physical bandwidth to not, even though you're working really long days, to not look like you're working long days and you know, look chipper and energetic the whole entire time.
Yeah.
So you have like the physical fatigue that's building up, because especially the major, it's a 3-week long thing, right? It's like there's 2 weeks of the group stage, and then you finally got to the final week, but we had to fly there and all that. So I think it was a combination of like mental stress building up, physical fatigue, and then you're like, okay, well, maybe we can get this moment. We'll still celebrate when it's over, but this would be cool. We're not going to expect it. We won't even dare hope for it because it's not supposed to happen. But when it does, and you see this like almost all of these stars aligning in this way that absolutely was not supposed to happen, it just feels like you're witnessing something that you shouldn't be there for. Like it's almost like something you read about, but oh my God, I'm there in person and I'm watching this happen. And this is literally the most beautiful ending that we could have ever asked for. Like it's just this release of the weight on your shoulders, and everything is worth it, and everything that was hard is worth it, and because this happened. And so I think that's a part of it. And then for me, I think at that point I had already become good friends with the guys. So I did have a personal investment of just being so happy for them. And then so the combination of the two is why I was a freaking hot mess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we were all like, it was the whole event was, you know, crazy. I that was the event I had my private bodyguard for.
I remember that, yeah.
It was like such an like, I can't even believe it's a fucking video game event we're talking about, right? But for me, even though the event was really stressful, you know, we're on the back slope, you know, and all of the good things are happening. Right as Cloud9 win it, it was coming through my ear. We just broke the viewing record on Twitch. We'd done all these amazing things. So I knew everyone was going to be like popping corks backstage, and that we'd achieved something really special. And obviously I'm biased because I was working for E-League and was part of the broadcast. But I do want to say, I feel, especially with how everything's gone since, I almost feel that that might be the high watermark for Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I feel both very happy to have been there, seeing it live, because it truly was this like unicorn moment that no one expects. But it makes me sad to think that really was that it. It's
Well,
such a cool
well,
game.
listen, the pandemic, all bets are kind of off at the moment, right? Like
Yeah, I
if
know.
the next major might be amazing, might be the greatest
Yeah,
of all time. Just depends, but I think it needs to be.
yeah,
It needs to be
yeah.
amazing, or you know,
I feel you. I feel you. There's gonna be a lot of expectation. People are like, finally, we can leave our fucking houses. Let's watch this the first land of proper land.
yeah. So I never thought I would say this like sort of publicly,
Mm,
because I'm kind of coming out of retirement now.
mm.
I'm getting back into event work, and I hope I get to work it. Actually, I'll do anything. I'll fucking do one little segment just to be included. I think because I feel it's like the make or break point for us. We either stay the big tier one rock and roll
Mm.
esport we've always been, or we start, going into a bit of a decline, I think.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about this upcoming event that way, but
Mm.
I think you're actually really right. Uh, I love
Yep.
this game too much. It needs to be great.
Yeah, I know a
I'm
lot of
hoping it's gonna be great.
lot of pressure on PGL and everyone who's going to work it and be involved. So, but fingers crossed, because obviously CS is like, that's my first love.
Hmm.
So hopefully, but let's talk about you. Obviously, you've lived through the rise and fall of the biggest esport before. You were a StarCraft 2 staple,
Mm.
somebody that was, you know, again, I'm trying to think of all the StarCraft events I used to go to. It felt like from 2013 onwards,
Hmm.
you were just at all of them. Um,
Yeah.
and so a lot of work, but there was a lot of love for you from that community, because I think people recognize that you were endemic. You would come through as a streamer. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because living in the public eye, like you did, I think is kind of surreal. Like I struggle with it. People have this weird connection to you,
Mm.
and you were very open about your life. You would literally stream from your house, and as I jokingly came out, your parents would come in and clip you around
Slap
the
me.
ear like
Yeah.
what you're doing and stuff like that. So let's talk about that. I mean, why did you sort of gravitate towards StarCraft and the competitive scene right at the start?
Yeah. So I know some people might know this, but for me, StarCraft initially was just like an escape. So if we like dial it back to 2009 is when I first discovered there was a even such a thing as an esport.
Mhm.
I had been living a like I would say a normal, life where I thought I was going to be a doctor and I was on that traditional route, or so I thought, or so my poor mom thought. And then in 2009 there were just a couple of series of events, like my parents split and stuff like that, and I got really depressed. And around this time I coincidentally discovered there was a huge StarCraft scene happening in Korea, and it wasn't just like a dinky thing. It had full production. I mean, OGN production is
Yeah,
is
legendary.
super famous for exactly, it's legendary. And I remember watching it and being shocked, because I was like, wait, this is the game that my brother played and I would watch him play. I can't believe that there's like an actual league for this and like a structure for it. And it's like a professional thing that people get paid to do. And I remember when I came home from Korea, when I first discovered it, I was like Googling how to watch it from New York because I wanted to keep watching it. And I discovered teamliquid.net. And that's when I was like, oh, there's more people like me that like want to watch this as an international fan. I thought I was like a rarity, but it turns out there's a lot of love for this game
Mm.
internationally, even outside Korea, even though there was no English broadcast at the time. It was entirely done. Like people don't realize now, because of course there's always going to be an English broadcast for anything that's going on, but back then there was no such thing. Like we had to get like illegal streams and get some weird link and like paste it into VLC, and like it would break all the time, but that's how dedicated we were to watching these games that were happening in Korean time, by the way. So I was waking up at like 4 a.m. to watch this shit. But yeah, I started really diving headfirst into StarCraft, and uh it was right around the time that I was so depressed that like I canceled everything I was doing in my life. Like I stopped going to classes. I deactivated from my sorority. I like stopped seeing my friends. I My freshman roommate at the time would joke like, Sue, have you left your bed today? And I'd be like, no. And like she'd be like, oh, okay. And the next day, like, Sue, what about today? Have you left your bed? I'd be like, no. um But what I would do is like I'd have my laptop on my stomach and I'd watch all the games, and it felt really good that out of the darkness of whatever was happening in my personal life, there was this really cool thing to look forward to, which were these StarCraft matches.
Mm.
And it felt good to be part of a community of other folk that just loved these StarCraft matches. And in those moments where we watched these games together, it didn't matter what was happening in our personal lives. We were people that had a similar passion for this beautiful game, and we got to talk about it together. We got to watch it live together, and I was just so in love with it. And I remember I was like, I want to give back to this community. So I started doing these translations of all the interviews that were going on in Korea.
Yeah, right. I remember that
And
because it's easy to forget that, you know,
mhm.
you're fluent in a isn't it a bunch of languages you speak?
No. It's just Korean.
Oh, okay.
I wish.
I thought you had I thought you could speak Spanish as well. I don't know where I've got
I
that
mean,
from.
I can from like,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
but like the literally like a 1-year-old level Spanish.
Better than me. So,
um so yeah, I did all these like voluntary translations, and that's how I got immersed in that community. So I think that's why when StarCraft 2 tournaments started happening in America, and that's when Justin.tv started popping off, and streams started to get bigger, and StarCraft streams and tournaments started to get bigger and get more attention. When there was a need for a translator for these tournaments, that's how I first started out. And that's when I did get a lot of love, because they were like, oh, this is the girl that did all the voluntary translations, years ago. And, she's someone from the community and she's doing this now on stage. That's really cool. And I think that bled over for a little bit when I began hosting. Like, okay, like she's clearly very new at this, but she's passionate and she means well. So, yay, go Smix. And then what eventually happens is like there's like a honeymoon phase where people are like
yeah.
wishing the best of you, and they're like giving you all the benefits of the doubts. You know what I mean? They're like,
Mm,
yeah, we like this new person, and then they keep watching you, and then they start noticing things, right?
mm.
So the honeymoon period was there, and then it just like crashed as people quickly realized, wait a minute, there's a lot of shit this girl needs to work on, which was very, very true.
Was the criticism? I mean, because again, I've got to cast my old boomer brain back.
You're fine.
Was the criticism really that bad? I mean, did it ever go into an area you felt like really upset about?
So yes and no. I think all the criticism I got, I actually agreed with in terms of the hosting criticism I was getting. It was hard to deal with just because I was such a insecure mess at the time that even though I agreed with it, it just like fed into my self-loathing, right? So it would be like, yes, I agree with you. I also think I'm sucking. And then it would be like, I'm falling into a dark hole. So there's that aspect. And then there was the flip side of things, which I felt was actually a little bit unfair, where people were like, oh, like whose dick did she suck to get this job? Like why her over, and
Yikes!
that's where I felt that was unfair,
Yeah.
because I did feel like I had put in a lot of time. I wasn't some random person. Like I had been in 2009, 2010, I did like literally dozens and dozens and dozens of translations for free. And so to just for that to be the assumption just because
Yeah.
I was a woman, and back then that was like such a rarity, right?
I want to say as well, like looking back, I was a little bit, I was ashamed of some of the opinions. I think I expressed at the time because I was somebody that was told I would never be on camera,
Mm,
right? And so how I met Rachel Quirico,
mm,
Seltzer, the other, legendary future Hall of Famer stage host, along with you, is it was that I said on Twitter, but it's always bloody Twitter, isn't it? I said on Twitter that it must be. She was talking about problems that women faced in the industry,
mm.
and I said, "Oh, it must be so hard getting hired because you're good looking." And
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like such an asshole. The good thing that came out about it was me and Rachel, because she's like great, she's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. She actually reached out and had a conversation with me instead of treating me like the
Mm,
piece of shit I was being. And we ended up talking, and I suddenly got her perspective, because it was like, first of all, in general on broadcasts, you generally go for attractive people, but
mm,
equally the idea that there's no meritocracy at play for women, and it's
Mm.
purely aesthetic, is like repugnant and misogynistic in its nature. And I couldn't see it that way because I was blinded by my own bitterness. But then I
Mm.
guess it says everything that an overweight bald man got to be on camera in the end anyway. So, whereas women are held to a very different standard in our industry in the eyes of sections of the community. So, yeah, I think probably I can imagine some of the comments you saw, because I've said not things as bad as that, but certainly I've gone down that road, and thoroughly ashamed to have done so.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I feel very proud of is I feel like, and Rachel and I, like Rachel is like a sister to me. I will always, always be so thankful to her. Like with every person that I've known from way back in the day, and Richard, like I have my own little story about you, but like I have little moments that I will never forget of things that the other person did so naturally for me, but for me was such a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So for me, for Rachel, it was like 2013. I think it was the first event that DreamHack had ever asked me to host. As you can imagine, I was a nervous wreck.
Mm.
I remember I didn't eat a single meal. I had like 6 Red Bulls. So you can imagine like Richard, the interview, like my hand is literally doing this. And and I was speaking like this fast. I was like, and during that game and like it was awful. And I was just a wreck, and Rachel just like comforted me backstage, and she just was there. She didn't
Yeah.
need to be, right?
Mm.
And I'm not saying she had to be like a rude bitch about it, but she was not only not she was just she cared. Like she genuinely cared, and she never saw me as like a threat or like anything. She just genuinely like embraced me, both physically with her arms, but like with her freaking heart
Yeah.
on that day. And I remember being like, oh, like even in the moment when I'm like crying in her chest, I was like, she's doing this. Like she doesn't need to, but she's being so kind to me.
Would be the easiest thing in the world for her as well, to relish that, because again,
Exactly.
a potential rival for future
That's what I'm
work.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
She's great like that.
yeah, and the thing is, like, I wouldn't have even blamed her for ignoring me for crying, like, because it's just how things were back then. But she just embraced me, she hugged me, she was there for me. And Rachel and I actually had this really great conversation recently. I was telling her how there was a talent announcement that went out for the recent Valorant tournament that I was in, and I was on it, and Potter was on it. And I remember just like mindlessly scrolling the responses, which I don't typically do, but I don't know why. I was just like, well, and I was scrolling, and I'm so used to at this point, like I'm really numb to it at this point. Like it doesn't hit me or affect me at all anymore. But I'm used to seeing like, oh, who's this dumb bitch, or like, who the fuck is this, or like, oh,
That's
like
ridiculous.
you get what I
isn't
mean,
it?
right?
Yeah. I
And I'm
know.
just used to it at this point. Like it doesn't. I'm not affected by it anymore. It was the first time that not only did I not see any of that, like not even a single troll, but also I saw the reverse where people were like, "Oh my god, it's so cool to see Potter on this." Like, "Wow, Smix on this broadcast, like that's, I know this is going to be a great event." And I was just sitting there like floored at what I was seeing. And not just me and Potter, by the way. Similar praise was happening for Lauren.
Yeah.
And I had this like really weird moment of like, wow, like we've gotten here. Like this is
We've
we're not
definitely come an unbelievably long way in
yeah.
like the past 10 years,
Yeah.
and it's great.
And so Rachel and I had this like conversation of like, it feels good. Like we were there at the start, and it was pretty awful, but it feels good that like hopefully we helped pave the way that this is now the normalcy, right? Like this is normal, where you have women as analysts, casters, hosts, and it's normal. It's not perceived as weird. And not only those things, but they're considered excellent at the role, and
Yeah.
there's no doubt given. Like that is this other portion was something that baffled me, because I've just not been used to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the good thing that's happened. We've moved past, because here's typically how the pendulum goes. You have an ism, whatever it is, a form of prejudice, a bias, and that sucks and it's awful. And even people, like myself, who wouldn't consider themselves bigoted in any particular way, we can say dumb shit that sort of adds to it. And it's only when you remove yourself and step back, you go, yeah, I shouldn't have said that actually, because it's not really a reflection of who I am or what I believe, and I've added to the problem. And then you feel bad, you reflect, you evolve, right? But then what starts happening is people want to fix the problem and they get so caught up in fixing the problem, they go the other way. And you end up with this almost appeasement, tokenism, and
Mm,
that I think that's as insulting. I think saying to somebody, and I've talked to a lot of people this has affected, people who are well-meaning, who go, oh, well, yeah, of course we're going to hire you. We need a woman on the broadcast. Don't
mm,
hire me because I'm a fucking woman.
mm,
Like, no one wants to hear that.
yeah.
Don't hire me because I fill this slot.
Mm,
Hire me because I'm fucking good. Like, tell you respect me and you value my work. Tell me that.
yeah.
And then eventually over time, that
Yeah.
reaction to the reaction, yeah, we end up where I think we're at now, where, as you said, I think everyone recognizes no one gets a free ride in this business just on these qualities.
No, that's
Either
not how it
way, you
works.
have to earn your fucking spot, right?
No, and don't get me wrong, like, do I think that sometimes being a woman has been a factor in a decision? Of course, I'm not going to be naive. Like, sometimes people need to consider that, especially when you think about brands and sponsors that
Of course.
specifically look for that kind of thing. That being said, that is never going to be a factor for someone to always get hired over and over again. At the end of the day, if you're not putting in the work and if you're not working hard, that, like, this industry is really small, especially the talent side of this industry, and the esports talent side of this industry is so small. You cannot get away with that. Everyone will
No,
know.
no, not at all. No.
Everyone will know. Like, just like, what my freaking weird habits are, like, I'm sure that there's like 20 other talent that can name the weird, like, muttering that I do, and the pacing, and the note taking, and like the little pistols I draw, and like, so I think that's what people don't realize is, like, for anyone to last in this industry, they need to have been putting in the work over and over again. No one wants to hire bad talent. That's just the fact of the matter.
Exactly. Yeah. And trust me, it's like you're judged so much on the broadcast that anyone who fucks up, I mean, it's not unheard of in our industry. You might get pulled mid-show if you do a bad job, and then good luck ever working with that company again. It's certainly happened to some people where if their interviews have been, bad, or if they've been, you know, not done a great job in casting. Sometimes you just turn up on the Monday they're there, and on the Tuesday they're gone, and no one's saying why.
Mm.
And behind the scenes, that person's not going to get a free ride. They obviously have to go back to the drawing board and work on their stuff, which I don't think people realize. We're always kind of working in a way. We're always adapting and getting better at what we do. Back to StarCraft 2. When did you know you'd kind of made it as established talent? What was the moment in your brain where you were like, oh wow, yeah, I'm kind of fucking a mini, I'm like a mini celebrity now.
Okay, well, first of all, I never thought I was a mini celebrity. I still
Never
don't
thought
think I'm
that.
a mini. No,
I mean,
no.
I don't, but I have to kind of acknowledge on some level that it is
I
true. Like
this is
we're like
well,
Z-list celebrities essentially.
the way that I look at it is less so like the celebrity word, but more like endemic figures in a community.
Okay.
Um, and so I think for me, and this actually surprised some people when I told them, but I don't think it was until like 2018.
Really?
Okay, and the reasoning for that is because, again, I told you a while ago in this interview that I am extremely cognizant of my strengths, but more so my weaknesses, because I know what I need to work on, and I'll just be straightforward with saying this because it's just the truth and I have no shame in saying it. I'm not a natural on camera talent. Like, it took me a lot of hard work to like literally, the way I would reference it is like I had to like take one brick and like put it on, and then it would like fall off. And
Right.
I'd like have to study it and be like, okay, let me try this again. And so it's only over the course of like this last decade that I've precariously just put together this makeshift brick wall that I'm finally, in 2018, I took a step back and I was like, okay, finally I feel like this is a wall that is pretty solid. Do I think it's the most beautiful professional wall in the world? Number one, no. But I feel happy with what I've built, and I can confidently say that I finally enjoy the work that I do, and I don't like hate it anymore.
Mm.
Because before it was so uh when I would finish an event, all I could think about was like, oh, I should have done this better. Like, oh, this is a moment that I messed up. And it was just this the whole ride home on the plane. I'd just be thinking about that like over and
Can you
over again.
watch yourself?
Yeah, I do.
I see.
And
I can't.
yeah, but Richard, you're natural on camera.
See, I don't.
Yeah, shut
I
up.
don't feel that way either, though.
Okay. What?
So,
Well, let me just tell you that you are.
oh,
Um,
you're
yeah,
making
yeah,
me
yeah,
blush.
yeah. But just there are some people that you watch them do their craft, and like it's like I told you, right? When I build my brick wall, I'm like, all right, I've learned, and I'm like really like focusing on every muscle movement to make this happen. There are some people that are just like boop boop boop, and I'm not saying they don't work hard. That's not at all what I'm saying.
They
I'm
make it
just
look
saying
effortless. Yeah.
they may not only do they make it look effortless, just certain parts of the movement come more naturally to them. And
Okay.
there are other parts of the brick building that maybe they need to work on. But my point is, like, it just comes more naturally for some people. And I was not one of those people. So it was really only until like 2018 that I really took a step back. 2018, coincidentally, Boston major.
Yeah.
That I really took a step back, and I was like, okay, I actually feel like I'm getting there, and uh, I'm not ashamed of this wall anymore. Like I feel pretty good about it, and I can show this wall to people.
I mean, 2018 is a crazy year for you, actually. You did the whole of the WCS tour. I think it was. You did every event on WCS, which, for those who don't know, if you're watching this and you're a Counter-Strike fan, that was basically Activision Blizzard's official StarCraft 2 circuit, which they did create too late to save the game. But, it was still, in 2018, it's still a big deal. That was the one where Cyril was dominating. Huge story.
Yep.
Great stuff. So you did all of that. You did the Boston Major. I'm sure as well you did... What was the other event? Didn't you do? It wasn't Dota, was it? Didn't you do a MOBA?
No.
Or or was it another RTS? Or was it? I'm trying to think. I've got this image in my brain. If you
Well,
stood in front
I
of
did
a...
I did Heroes of Newerth in like 2015.
No, not that. This was
You're like,
2018.
Sue.
What was it? Were you at like Gamescom or something like that? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old. Maybe I'm just imagining things. But whatever. Anyway.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
On top of that, you were also put on the Forbes 30 under 30 list.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this is true.
So I remember it was like late 2017 when that official list came out, because they released the 2018 in like late 2017. And in the span of like 3 months, I got the Forbes 30 under 30, and I got this other one that was like Adweek top 30 most successful woman in sports or some shit. And I kid you not, Richard, I remember I got this shit and I was like ashamed and upset and embarrassed. I remember at the time, by the way, and I say this as someone, I can say this comfortably now because I'm very confident now and I'm not that person. I'm like, I've grown a lot since then. But at the time when this shit came out, I remember going to my coworker and being like, oh, no, they congratulated me. That's what happened. They were like, Sue, wow, congratulations. And I yelled at them. I was like, I shouldn't be on this list. Why the fuck did they put me on this list? Like, look at the other people on this list. How the fuck, like, fuck. Like, I remember going off and they were just sitting there like, bitch, I was just trying to compliment you.
Yeah. I think you did that to me. I think you did that to me. I think I
remember.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Richard, I remember this again because I remember these moments that mean a lot to me, right? Facebook, I had posted it and I had been both almost embarrassed and reluctant to post it, but it felt like such a prestigious thing that I did want to share it with my personal friends in my life. So I pasted it, and I had added in the caption like, I don't feel like I deserve this yet, but I hope to continue working on myself so that one day I can feel like I am deserving to be listed amongst these amazing people. And I remember you had left me a comment that I remember I like cried. You had basically said something like how you absolutely believe that I am one of those people, and that you've watched me over the years, and that you believe in the work that I've done, and like all this stuff. And I was just like,
all true. I never say anything just to say it. I'm not that
No,
guy. So if
no,
I
I
say it,
know.
it's 100% accurate. You better believe it.
No, I felt
So,
your sincerity, which is
mm,
why I was so touched, because at the time I didn't feel it at all. And at the time I was nowhere near like really like loving myself as a person.
sure.
So,
But you had two great years, I think. I think
mhm.
2017, you know, because there was that thing as well. You got another award in 2017. You were named one of the 35 most powerful
Oh
women
yeah, that was the other one.
in esports. And
No, it was
then
sports actually. It was freaking sports.
oh, in sports. Holy
Yeah,
shit,
listen,
that's
Richard.
huge.
Richard,
That's
why do you
huge.
think I was yelling at this poor motherfucker who just tried to congratulate me? I was like, I remember this very clearly. I remember where I was standing. I remember where he was sitting, and I was like, "Look at this list. There's an SVP of fucking ESPN. There's a fucking VP of whatever the fuck. Why the fuck am I here?" And I was like going off, and he was just like, "This bitch is
Yeah, oh,
crazy."
I mean, no, but you know, it's. I think what happened there. I'll
Mm.
put forward a theory, right? Because I think I've experienced similar things. It's where right you because we experience life subjectively. We know everything about ourselves. We know, you know,
The dark
all
parts, the weak
yeah,
parts.
the dark parts, the shit parts, the selfishness, the embarrassing moments,
Mm-hmm.
you
All of
know.
them.
Yeah, right.
Rip it, please. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we have a complete, fully fleshed out idea of ourselves. And when we see something that feels comparatively superficial, that you don't feel powerful, but somebody else has ascribed that value to you, you don't feel, you know, like you're worthy of 30 under 30. What, like I'm one of the fucking 30 best people in my spot? Am I? What, in the whole planet? Is that
Mm-hmm.
real? And
Mm-hmm.
obviously you know, you think of yourself as a human
Mm-hmm.
and just a regular person. And what you start realizing is when that starts happening to you, you're actually you're almost like an avatar to other people. Like you're important to them. You know, it's like a recognition of influence. It's a recognition that people look up to you. You know, there's going to be people now working want to be the next Smix.
Yeah. And at the time, I just could not see that. I
Mm,
think I've come a long way since then. I feel a lot more just comfortable with who I am, and I definitely love myself way more than I did back then.
mm,
Now, looking back, I can look at the accolades I got and not feel uncomfortable about it
mm.
because I know how hard I worked. I know what it was like when I first started. I think I can comfortably and confidently say I was a huge part of things changing, and it's just funny looking back because I just feel like I've changed so much since then. But yeah, back then I was so embarrassed.
Oh, it's weird. By the way, I remembered it was Heroes of the Storm. Of course it was. You definitely worked
Ah,
Heroes of the Storm. There you go.
it was only one event though.
Was it
It was
BlizzCon? Was it a BlizzCon?
mm-mm, mm-mm.
No.
I was never part of like the huge shuffle of shit that was happening when Heroes started taking off.
Mm.
It was only right when it was starting to take off, and it was at a dream hack where I was a desk host with like Todd and
Todd.
Pepper. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here you go. We've got that in common. I worked one Heroes of the Storm event as well.
Hey, that's dope.
DreamHack Valencia.
Mm-hmm.
And I fucked it up royally.
No
It was
way.
yeah, no. I'll tell you why. It was me, Todd, and Colaris.
Mm-hmm.
And probably someone else I've forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
No, me and Todd have known each other for
Yeah.
years with StarCraft. Good friend, love him.
Yeah.
We were even hanging out in Vegas recently. Cool guy.
Yeah.
But that was when the game had just come out, and they didn't have a hero. They had a separate website for pick and ban.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember this. So it was like you
I
had to
don't.
use you had to use a separate website to sort of pick and ban what heroes and stuff you were going to
Okay.
use, and then they would have to go into the game and pick them manually.
Wow.
And I said on broadcast, like, that's a bit of a fucking oversight. Like I said, oh, why have they got us? And like it's just coming through on my ear. Richard, please stop this. And I'm going, why have they got?
Richard, please stop.
Yeah. It was like the producer saying, no, stop this. No, it's like because like at the start of the game, Activision Blizzard had real high hopes for it, but they didn't put a pick ban in. They didn't put a pick ban in a fucking MOBA. What are you doing? So I like a hero select, you know. So I was like, I said that on broadcast and was laughing about it, and Todd and Kalaris were looking at me. They can hear the producer. I don't even know who it was at DreamHack going, please, Richard, stop this, stop. Please. But I've committed to the bit now. I've committed to the joke, so I had to
my cheeks hurt. Oh god.
I had to finish because you've heard that too. Stop this. you know what I'm.
Smix, can you Smix?
Yeah, you know. So yeah, I fucked that up big time. That was another. I didn't do it. I didn't do another Heroes of the Storm event after that.
It's okay. I only did one event too.
Yeah. Right. So look, let's talk about the real important thing I think Smix gives to everybody.
Oh God.
And this is why I think your story is more iconic than a lot of people who come through. And you alluded to it a little bit, and we don't have to get deep or personal or whatever, right? But you talk about as much as you feel comfortable. But obviously I think the thing that's super important about you is you went off a very clear career pathway. As you said, you should have been a doctor. And you chose esports, which, let's be real, it's not doctor money or doctor status. And your parents at the time certainly felt that was a mistake. And over time, they've seen all the great things you've achieved, all the accolades you've achieved, all the parts of the world you've traveled to. And they have not only grown to accept your choice, but respect your choice and support your choice. And I think there's a lot of people out there. The big hurdle in getting an esports career is essentially parental approval when they start younger. And so I wondered if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a really cool aspect to your story and importance in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, now, hindsight 2020, when I look back now, I can see exactly why they were so upset, right? First of all, before I even jumped into the deep end of the pool and I was like, I'm doing this full time. Before I did that, I was like, I was just not doing well at school, period. They didn't know that because it's not like elementary school where your parent gets your report card. But what they did know was that I was depressed, and there was a period of about a year where I just didn't answer their phone calls. So I need to give that context because it's this important context of my parents were already very worried about me, right? They were like, we don't know what's going on with her academics. We don't even know if she's still attending classes. She says that she's depressed. She's not answering our calls anymore. We're worried sick about her, but she's just like AFK. Like, we don't know what's going on with her. I finally emerge out of my, Mia period, and I start responding. And this is already at a point when I was starting to host for events, but again, it wasn't like money I could live off of, right?
Yeah.
And this is again when I had started to stream, and so my income was the little bit of money I was getting from hosting and the little bit of money I was getting from streaming. And even when you would combine the two, it was like really, really sad revenue. And you get the Sue that was worrying them, and then you get the Sue that's like, listen, I want to try this. And, my mom just straight up asked me, well, how much are you making? And, I tell her, and I think it's impressive, right? Because in my mind, I was like, it's so cool. I'm getting paid. Wow. And, no context or realization of like how little that is. Because in my eyes, I was like, I'm just getting paid. I used to not even get paid anything. This is cool. So of course she was upset. And my dad had the grace to say, well, try this for a year. If it doesn't work out, then you can, study and go to grad school. But my mom was like vehemently against it. And it didn't help that my two best friends that I had, one, like, I kid you not, one became a doctor and one became a lawyer.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
And great Korean girls. I grew up with one. The other one I met in college. Coincidentally, I looked like them. That's not even me being like racist or something. Like we actually just look alike. So these three girls, me and these two, and where did this one go wrong is like the way my mom looked at it. And I remember she'd just say like, what did I do wrong? Like didn't I give everything to you? And the truth is, like, she had a point. Where did it go wrong? And so it was not good for a while. And this is again going to be a little bit of a pivot where again I have to say how lucky I am, but getting the job at Twitch was like a 180
Mm.
because in my parents' eyes, I had been so unstable and I had no anchor in their eyes, right? I was no real job, still depressed, all these things that were really bad. The job at Twitch, which by the way, they just told their friends I worked at Amazon because in the Korean community, what the fuck is Twitch, right?
Yeah.
So that was sort of the 180. And I think that in tandem with the mental improvements they saw happening to me over time, because parents can tell when something's wrong with you, like they sense it. um they eventually could feel me changing and coming out of the darkness, so to speak. And I think the two together, it finally got to a point where I think I had shared like some photos from a tournament that I had been at, and my mom was like, wow, like, Sue, you look so beautiful and I'm so proud of you. And I was like, we got here. Like there was a day when my mom was like so devastated and about my decision to go into gaming. And then we finally got there. So
Yeah. So I mean, I think if you had some advice, is there any? I mean, because I don't. Was there any framing or conversational moments where like your mother was able to like get it, like, or was it you just had to kind of keep that aspect of your life away from her, and eventually the work would speak for itself, and she would eventually be proud of you for that. Like, how did you help her get there? What tools did you use?
honestly, I know how this is going to sound, but it was only when I could start, like, it was when I was able to be like, hey, mom, not only am I successful now, like, I can even help you.
Mm,
Um, oh, you need this bill taken care of? Like, I got you. Like,
mm,
and that's when I think she like was like, oh, this gaming thing isn't this like thing I should be embarrassed of. My daughter is not only self sufficient, but she can like help me.
yeah.
And I think with a lot of other people I've talked to that have had similar resistance from their parents, that was a turning point for them where it's like when they finally got to a point of not only independence, like financial independence, but that moment where you're like, hey, dad, like, that car you wanted. Okay, that's dramatic. I've never even been able to do that, but
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
no, but you get what I'm saying. Or like, let's be reasonable. Oh, dad, like that scarf you wanted. There we go.
Yeah, scarf.
Yeah, yeah.
That microwave. There you go. That microwave you
Exactly.
wanted. Yeah.
So that's big. Another thing I would say is I think for a lot of people that deal with this, they're very young and they take a lot of the words that are said to them by their parents very, very personally. Like, because of course the parent is usually not sugarcoating their words, right? They're
Yeah.
usually saying like, you fucking, you piece of shit. Like, why are you
Mhm.
wasting your time? You're throwing your life away. Like, how could you do this? Like, and this what I just said comes in better or worse packages, but essentially it's the same package. What I would say to anyone in this position is try not to blame them so hard for feeling this way, because the truth is if you were them, you'd probably also be really scared and a little concerned.
Mhm.
What you can do instead is work your ass off, because if you feel so strongly that you want to be in this industry, you better show them why.
Yep.
So I think channeling your energy into that and doing the best that you can is the better usage of your time, and then that's the best way anyway to convince them. So
I eventually won my mother over too. Now you have to understand when my mother, uh, like she never got this. She couldn't understand it. She wanted
mhm,
me to learn a trade like everyone
mhm,
else, right? She was telling me when I was like 34, even
mhm.
it's not too late to be a plumber. She'd say. You imagine me under a fucking sink. So I was like, listen, just I'm just keeping this separate. I'm not going to talk to you about it.
Mhm,
It's just something I do. And then I think one of her pupils, she's a teacher,
mhm.
brought up like, "Isn't that your son?" And I think they'd seen the Shaquille O'Neal thing
That was such a
for
good
E
segment.
League, and now suddenly she's fucking proud of me. Oh, he's on
Mhm.
TV, is he now? And that was what kind of I think sold it to
The
her.
clicking moment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, similar stuff with the money, honestly, because I had to pay my way through college, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like dirt poor when I got out,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had to borrow some money from her back in the day. I
Yeah.
think that was another point where she'd be like, "Oh, what do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "I just don't need anything. I'm fine."
Mm-hmm.
She bought me a Rubik's cube mini fridge to facilitate my alcoholism, which I
Oh.
thought was nice of her. Like, thanks, Mark. But, so that's just in my living room now. I don't even have to get up to go get a beer. I will just watch a movie. But yeah, so we've got there eventually. Our relationships like improved incrementally, but I think
It's
she
time.
felt the same way, that I was making a big fucking mistake. And obviously, as parents, you can't help it. You don't want your kids to make mistakes,
Yeah.
you know. So I think that's important. I think there's a medium area where it's like
Mm-hmm.
you can support your kids in taking risks without disparaging, like without pissing all over their dreams,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing that you often hear, especially with other Asian Americans that are in this position, is like it's really extreme, right? It's like you get kicked out of your house, or you're told that you're
Double
going to be
lift, right?
disowned. Exactly, I was just thinking of him.
Yeah.
Or you're told that you're going to be disowned. It is really, it's like disparaging. Almost seems like like a positive spin of it, but it's more like you don't exist in my life if you go down this road. Um, is the ultimatum that you're often given.
Right. Right. I mean, it like I say, I think it's good you're able to talk openly about that. And I think it'll resonate with a lot of people when they watch this, because, that's something that it transcends a lot of cultures. It
Mhm.
transcends gender.
Mhm.
It's like, the reality is that a lot of parents still look at this as like it can't be real.
Of course.
It can't be real. But when people like yourself are able to say, well, look where I started, and then I was on a American TV show on TBS, people
You know
suddenly
what's
go, oh
funny?
shit, what's
My
that?
I don't act I never actually told my parents about any of the things that I did.
Really?
So I don't think they even know.
That you've been on
Like,
TV?
yeah.
Holy shit.
That because that that was never important to me. For me, yeah, I don't know why. I never wanted to be like, look. It was more like I just wanted to show them that I'm happy and I'm stable and I can even help them now. And for, like, to me, that was always the focus. But maybe it's also because like I never looked at that and like wanted to tell. I didn't even tell my friends. But I don't know. I think that's just a personal thing. Like I never wanted to be like, "Ooh, look at me."
Super surreal moment for me happened when a member of my family were flying, and they
Mhm.
flew. I can't.
And
Right.
and you were on the.
I was, yeah. They were going through the fucking in-flight shit.
They were like, wait a minute, that's fucking
And
Richard.
there it was, E-League Celebrity Showdown, and it's like My Ugly Mug and Lupe
Stop.
Fiasco and all of that. Like, and they took a picture of it and sent it
That's
on the
okay.
phone.
That's really special.
And I
That's
was
really
like, what the fuck? I'm on like I'm on in-flight entertainment. So it, like little things like that helped. My family are all working class.
Mhm.
You were meant to either be a criminal, be in the army, or learn a
Learn a
trade.
trade.
Typically carpentry or plumbing, and that was
Mm.
that. If you didn't do any of those things, then they couldn't understand why you would make these decisions in your life. So it was like it was a weird kind of pressure. I was a bookworm as a
Mm.
kid. I was a nerd as a kid.
I see the
Um,
books behind you.
yeah, they're the best friends I had growing up were the books. And my father wasn't in my life and all that, so I like
Hmm.
retreated into a like little fucked up fantasy world. And so yeah, it was very hard, like pushing back
Hmm.
against the family that wanted something very different for you.
Yeah.
It just never resonated with me personally. I'm sorry, I don't want to. I nearly did join the army. I mean, I came
Hmm.
close, failed a medical to join the Marines.
Hmm.
And then they said, we'll put you in the light infantry, and I would have been in Ireland dodging car bombs. So I said, nah, not doing that actually. So came really, could have had a very different life. But
Yeah.
I think it's important people talk about that, because like the next generation of kids that are coming through that are going to do our jobs in the future,
Yeah.
they're going to have all the same hurdles. They're going to have the same disapproval. We're not
Hmm.
fully there yet. We're
No, not
not.
yet.
Yeah.
It's a little better.
Mm.
Like I think in terms of frequency, I'm seeing less of a immediate disapproval from every single person who's getting into it. But of course, there's still a lot of I'm very concerned with you. Um, The other piece of advice I would give is, where possible, try to because I think a lot of people who fall into gaming and pick it up as a passion and then eventually later perhaps a job of some sorts, for a lot of people, gaming is an escape, right?
Mm.
And it could be for a number of reasons, right? Some people I know fell into it because they were injured. They used to be athletes and then they got a life-altering injury and they couldn't play anymore, and that's why they fell into gaming. For some people, they were bullied and it was an escape from, a horrific reality that they wanted to ignore, because online, you aren't this person with such and such reputation. You just are the same. And I think different people fall into gaming for different reasons. A lot of the time it is an escape, and I think when parents see you sort of retreat into something that they don't totally understand, but they know it's because of something not good, they're going to be concerned. And then when you say you're going to commit to that thing, and it's even scarier. So I think the one thing that I would say is, where possible, show them that you're healthy. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but what I mean by that is, like, if you're not taking care of your health, if you're not eating right, if you're, you know, literally atrophying as a person, as a human being,
Yeah.
and then you're like, mom, like, I'm gonna do this thing. Of course she's gonna be concerned. You're atrophying away in front of her eyes.
Yeah, you can't
Um,
look like the World of Warcraft dude from South Park. Like, it's
exactly. So
although if
we're
ironically on a long enough time scale, I'm gonna get there probably, but
listen, we're all gonna get there
yeah,
eventually when
true.
it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
for now, if you're serious about making it a profession, there's things that you can do to, try to alleviate the concern they may feel.
Mm. So look, I got a couple of quick fire questions at the end. To pick your brains about vitally important topics. So here's one.
Hmm.
Out of all of the talent you've ever worked with,
Hmm.
um, is there anyone that you've learned something from that has been incredibly vital to your career moving forward? And if so, what was the lesson?
Apollo.
Miss that dude.
I cannot, if there's like one person I have to thank for Smix existing and for getting the opportunities she ever got, literally every single opportunity, any learning I ever did, this brick wall foundation was built by Apollo. Like, literally. When I say I was a useless sack of shit when I first started hosting, I cannot say it more explicitly. I had no concept for structuring of interviews, how to start them, what to ask, when to ask, what to touch on. Like, I had no concept of it. All I knew was that I liked the games, I liked the players. Apollo was the one that literally, like, he like figuratively held my hand and was like, "All right, Sue, so this is when you want to do it like this, and this is when you want to bring up this, and this is when you want to bring up this part, this history of a player." And I, to the day that I die, will be so thankful to him for having the patience that he did to do that for me. Because again, he didn't need to, right? Like,
No.
it goes back to this thing of, like, he never ever needed to do that. He could have easily just minded his own business and focused on his casting at the time, which is what he was doing. He could have just done that, but he helped me, and he literally built the foundation for me. And then, since then it's been Smix, like, okay, well, Apollo built this little base on my brick wall. Let me try to build on top of what he did. But without him, there would be no wall. Like, there would be no Smix. I would have never gotten more opportunities. I owe him like my entire professional life.
Yeah, I mean, let me also say, just add to that, like, what a super gracious dude. Because when I hosted my first ever event, which was that DreamHack Moscow, but we sent you literally behind enemy lines because there was a border crisis breaking down with like the Ukraine or something at the time. You actually went out there. I said, I'm not flying to no fucking war zone, like, even for a job, like in esports. No, not happening. And so we did it in the little studio in
Stockholm studio, yeah.
Stockholm. Yeah. Well, he was going to be the host, I think, originally, but then Robert Olin wanted to make me the host to see how
Hmm.
funny it would be. So we moved Sean across to analyst,
Hmm.
and he just rolled with it. Was like helping me out between, when we were off camera. He goes, right, and this guy did this and this and this and this, and if you
Hmm.
make a joke about that, the community like it.
Hmm.
Just like walked me through it all, even though I'd essentially, taken the hosting gig from him. So Just an amazing, cool guy. Miss him dearly.
He, he is someone that I will like to the day I die. I owe him all of it.
Worst event and why?
There's so many. What do you mean? Okay. This is hard.
It's okay. I'm gonna ask you best event and why afterwards. So you don't feel if you're gonna upset a company, you can win it back immediately.
Can I? Are you sure? Richard! Okay. There were 2 bad events, and they're tied.
Right.
One was this event that I did in actually no. There's a clear winner here. It was actually horrendous. Okay. And I'm sorry to say this, but everyone that was part of this event knows it. It was the I Buy Power event that happened beginning of 2019.
Christ, yes.
It was one of those events where literally everything that could go wrong went wrong. So it was like almost comical.
Yeah.
Like everything from the stage setup, like the players could like see what was happening. Like they could see the screen, everything from that to the internet, to the schedule, to the actual broadcast, to the audio, to the technical delays, to the like everything that could go wrong went wrong. I can't think of the one redeeming thing that came out of that event was Liquid beat us. I think was that the event where Liquid finally beat Astralis?
It's just been expunged from my memory, and I wasn't even there.
I just remember it was unfortunate because it was finally the event where Liquid won, and it was when they had been on that run of like always getting second place, and they had finally won. But everyone was like, "Oh, it's such a shame because they do it at this event when it's considered a bit of a fluke."
Yeah. So when you say everything went wrong, what was the bit that was affecting you the most? What was the?
Oh, okay. Well, if you're asking which event was the worst for me personally, like mentally, it's a different answer.
Oh, okay.
But this event was just the worst in terms of like, oh my God, everything's off.
Yeah, well, go on and throw in the one that was worse for you mentally. Just so we can have
this one I can't say. This one
you can't say. You don't have to name the event if you don't want to, but
okay,
you can I won't tell the anecdote.
I won't name the event.
Unless
I won't
it's
name
horrible.
the event. I won't name the event, but there was I'm so scared of offending people. I'll just say there was an event that was using a new production team. So there was a lot of sound issues, right? So for example, I would be doing like an intro or something and it sounded like there was a megaphone in my ear. And I remember I had just done an intro and I heard like a in my ear like during the intro. So as soon as I had done the intro, I grimaced like because I thought the camera was off me. But apparently, like the grimace went out on camera, like because I was like, and it's Richard Lewis, and I took my like in ear out and I like tossed it and I was like frowning,
and they left that on.
And then, like that in of itself is like whatever, but it ended up turning into a bigger conversation where basically, obviously, when something like that happens, it's not just the talent that's stressed; it's also the people organizing the event.
Of course, yeah.
And it turned into this like clash where the person organizing was also really stressed and in my opinion I think in the heat of the moment did not communicate things the best way he could have, like for example when he talked to me about the grimace he had a valid point which was hey like you're a professional please be careful like we caught you like we caught the frown and that's fine but I think I had said something like okay but can you also acknowledge the fact that like these aren't ideal circumstances and
can you not fucking deafen me?
No. And
That's what I would have said.
And to be fair, like he was doing his best on that. But to that, his response was like, do you think that do you think we're not working hard on this? Like you think that you're working hard? Like we've been here since like 6 a.m. Like I've been working on this project for months and months. And it was just like I could tell all of his stress was coming out, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't understand what he was saying. It's that that doesn't like you just don't package it that way to someone who's about to go on camera, is my
Yeah.
point.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing I think when you, because I've had similar situations, right?
Yeah.
It's super important that when the energy is negative and things are coming off, if you're in like a leadership role, you have to marshal the troops. You've
Yeah.
got to, because it will come out on camera. And that's the
Yeah.
one area, that's the sin. The
Yeah.
show comes first, always. I don't think I've ever, no matter how bad an event has been, I don't think it's ever shown on a broadcast,
Yeah.
because I don't want that committed to camera for the rest of, time.
Exactly. And that's where I think that was the one of the hardest events for me, because it's like I got what he was saying, and I understood why he was upset, but in my opinion I was like, that wasn't the way to say it to me. And it bled over into other conversations that
Sure.
happened with the wider group, and the same sort of tone came out, and everyone was kind of like oing, like, hello, wait, why aren't we, why isn't this like a we, why is this like a,
Yeah, them and us.
so
And that's
it's
something that happens at shows. People don't realize that can happen sometimes, because
mm,
so from a talent perspective, what we do is we get to turn up later than production,
mm-hmm.
right? Obviously, production's in at 6, we come in at 8,
Yes. Yep.
right? And production might have been there till 12 or 2
Mm-hmm.
or 4.
Exactly.
Sometimes they don't even get to a hotel; they sleep in the
Yep.
room, and
Mm-hmm.
then we come in, and what they're doing is they're doing a very technical job in a high pressure situation. But it's okay if they look like shit. It's okay if they look like shit,
Mm-hmm.
and if they behave like shit, because they're not on camera,
Mm.
right? We come in, and yeah, we've had slightly more sleep, although not always. And we sit down, we do a production meeting, and we do our sound check, and we get made up, and then we go out there, and people don't realize it's very draining to be on all the time, to
Mm-hmm.
do the mannequin grins and hey,
Yeah.
it's wacky rich and everything's
Yeah.
great. And then as soon as the camera goes off, you're like, fuck this, fuck
Yeah.
this. And so when talent starts to complain, and I find invariably it's talent that breaks first,
Mm-hmm.
that then gets picked up on by the production.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I've had production guys say to talent, I mean, I'm not a big whiner at events anyway, but I've heard it with other talent where the production goes, "You think you've got it hard? I've been here all night.
No,
I slept on my
absolutely.
desk." And then the talent hate that, and then this is when it starts to break apart. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why the leadership role is super important, because you're a fucking team.
Mm-hmm.
You are a team. The production guys can fuck you over, and
Mm.
broadcast talent on camera can certainly fuck over the whole event. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird when it starts to break down like that. But I've definitely done probably half a dozen events where it's been really noticeably tense.
Yeah. I'd have to pick that one. And
Mm.
I just think it was just an unfortunate series of events, because that's exactly what happened. It's like things were not good, right? So they were staying overtime and getting there earlier to fix this issue that wasn't getting resolved. So they're already like physically strung out.
Mm.
Then I think what had happened was one of the talent were like, what the fuck? We don't get breakfast. So it like, I'm sure that's where it started, where like it started adding up, right? Because from their eyes, they're like, what the fuck? We're like bending over backwards to try to fix this problem.
Mm.
You're worrying about breakfast? Like, and then add on the fact that I'm like grimacing on camera,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, can you acknowledge that it's been hard for us? I can see why he was like, it's hard for you, like what do you, and I get it, but I remember at the time I was just so like, it was really hard for me to refocus for the rest of the day.
Hot mics happen to us all. Think about Machine, fucking shit show, the classic, right? It's bad. It's bad when it
Uh,
goes down. But look, now we get to do positivity, more in
mhm.
line with Smix. Best event of all time in any game you've worked, and why?
I mean, I- this might be a cop out answer, but it's like, for me, there's two highlights for me, and I know you said best event, Sue. What the fuck? But
I'll let you do two.
okay, for me, there's the biggest reason why I do these events is for the storylines, right? If I can help amplify what is already an amazing moment, and help tell the story of why it's so amazing and make it a big deal, like, then I've done my job. So that's why the C9 winning Boston Major for me is absolutely up there, and we've already talked about it, so I don't have to go on about why.
Mm,
The other event was when Cyril won.
mm,
Um, when he won BlizzCon, that was such a and people don't know this because Jenna Bella wasn't there filming me for a little bit, but I cried again after that because I'm a freaking baby. But that moment was so symbolic about this game, StarCraft, that's quietly been going on, and players are still practicing their asses off and improving year after year. And you get this, by the way, Cyril's like the nicest freaking guy ever. Get this Finnish lad who's quiet and just working really hard, and from 2016 to 2018 he just becomes this like juggernaut, and you're like, okay, but surely he can't beat the Koreans like when it matters most, because no one's ever done that. Koreans are like, superior. They've always been superior, especially in a game like StarCraft when it's like not even been close ever. And then he did it. Yep. And it was just a really amazing moment. So all the power to Cyril. I love him. He's such a nice guy.
So last question, and then I'll let you get back to decorating your office.
Yeah, it's going well, as you can see.
No. Obviously, I know you have a full-time job, and you probably you should enjoy some time off. I would say, just relax and chill out. We've all had a crazy 18 months, and so maybe don't throw yourself straight back into the fires of Mount Doom. But are you, obviously with Valorant popping off and stuff, are we going to see more of you doing event work? And are there any events on the horizon you'd like to be involved in?
I think without paying attention to like what's already happening and stuff like that, if I just said like, oh, I would like to, I think I would love to continue to do StarCraft for as long as it's around. It's always going to be why I'm even here today. But separately from StarCraft, which is to me like a staple I'll always be a part of, I would love to be able to continue to tell the stories for at least the North American Valorant teams if I can. And lastly, even though I don't work Counter-Strike much at all anymore, it's just a game I love so much that if I got the opportunity, it'd be cool. But I totally understand if I don't get asked anymore, but it's just a game I love. So
sure, you're in everyone's thoughts. I know the CS community love you dearly, as do I. And it's been good. It's been good to catch up. Our friendship, one of the best things to come out of esports for sure. I wouldn't have met you otherwise.
After Moscow.
Well, yeah, we were just bonded immediately.
hello.
I wish I see. I deliberately didn't bring that up because I always felt it's a weird bit to end the podcast on. But obviously that famous clip, right, which I'm not even going to say. I'm not going to mention it because I always felt you had that. Did because it disappeared off the internet.
Oh no,
I thought. Did you not vanish that with your powers?
Well, first of all, no, I would never use, if I had powers like that, I would never use it for those reasons.
Okay.
But also, I mean, was it an embarrassing moment at the time? Absolutely. But it's like now, I mean, at this point, it was 7 years ago. I think it's fucking hilarious.
The two greatest, I say greatest, funniest stage host moments for me is that, and I'll tell people at home who don't know it. You won't be able to find it. I don't know where it went to. But obviously, as I said, we sent Sue out to Russia. It was her and Hellspawn went to Russia. All of the guys, me, Moonglade, Apollo, we got to hang out at Stockholm, and we were there doing the event. And what we were getting was we had a monitor in the room, an audio, so we could watch Sue's segments, so we could throw from them seamlessly. But we were all off camera, and Sue's out there. Everyone speaks Russian. Everyone speaks Russian, and it's loud as fuck. And she's in. It's like a mosh pit you were in. I couldn't believe it. They just pushed you into a crowd, and you were just walking around. And there's all Russian people jumping in front of the cameras and all this, right? And she's trying to interview some dude who doesn't speak great English. She has a translator there who doesn't speak great English. I don't even know what he was. Yeah, the translator didn't. The translator couldn't fucking translate, and so the guy was talking, and you couldn't hear him. Because obviously the mic's not coming through your ear and it's loud. And you were asking him like what he thought about the team or a player or whatever. And he was just going, repeat, please. No. Repeat, please. And Sue obviously is like, Right, she got it the first time and asked him again, and he just kept going, repeat, please. And she went, yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Moving on.
yeah, moving on. And it was me and we were fucking crying with laughter, dude. We were crying with laughter. Like, honestly, I don't even know how we held it together to do that segment. Like, me and Apollo were in each other's arms crying over what we'd seen. And unfortunately, that clip's gone forever. It's one of the best things.
It must exist somewhere.
I've been looking for it for years. I swear. Someone will have a VOD of it somewhere, maybe. Maybe this will help dredge it up, but it was brilliant. And then the other one, obviously, right, it shouldn't happen to a stage host. Rachel with the French renect on, just saying, "Hi, I'm French." That's why I'd never do that work. That's fucking crazy. That shouldn't happen to people. She's talking to a Frenchman dressed as a crocodile who doesn't speak English, and the producers go and ask 3 questions. Like, to what purpose? What does this solve? What's up? This isn't good content. So,
like you said, Rachel and I paved the way, all right? We fucking paved the way.
Blazed the trail, no doubt. So look, it's great to just hang out and talk. I think you're amazing at what you do. And like I say, I treasure our friendship. And so thank you so much for your time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you continue to blaze a trail through this esports industry and be on the Forbes 40 under 40.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, thank you, Richard. I can't wait for the day that, I can see you at the bar of another hotel and we can catch up.
We can do tequila shots again. You still keeping your practice in? I'm still good. Listen, I can still hold my liquor. So,
I was at the beginning of the pandemic. I was definitely drinking a little too much.
Yeah.
But I just started Accutane, so I can't drink.
That's a shame. All right.
But by the time we see each other, I'll be off Accutane. I'll be ready.
Thank God. Yes. So there you go. Look, everyone who watches podcast, that is, of course, the great Smix. Show us some love. Go follow her on her socials. Maybe when you're watching this, tell me your favorite Smix moment below in the comments. So she can sit there. Yeah, it's going to be all repeat, please. Yeah, I loved it when you went to Russia. Yeah. But she's great. And you should totally support her in everything she does. That was the Richard Lewis show for this episode. I don't know who the next guest is going to be. I don't know when I'm next going to do an episode, but just make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and all of that shit kids do for more stuff like this. And I'll see you next time. Take care.